Hello and welcome back to the Vegan Runner. After almost 6 weeks of 80-20 training and well over 150 miles in the legs, I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on my early experience with 80-20 training, my likes, my dislikes and everything else in between. Right, no running today. I'm taking a few days off before starting the half marathon plan, keeping the legs nice and fresh. So instead I've just been on the indoor bike, 90 minutes on Zwift today, climbing the Alp, enjoying the, I think, 3,000 and something feet of vertical gain and trying to get the coveted Meilenstein wheels, gloves today again for like the 15th time, but I don't know, fingers crossed for next time. Right, so what's going well with 80-20? So first up, I'm really enjoying the easy running. After a 5-minute warm-up in zone 1, you spend a lot of time in zone 2 for most of your workout. It's just a relatively easy and settled pace that you feel that you could run all day at. It's really been brilliant. I'm not one to sort of skip workouts, especially if I'm following a plan, but knowing I haven't got a really seriously leg-destroying run coming up, as I would have in my old plan, means I'm far more likely to approach my run in a positive way and stay motivated for it. It's also meant I can enjoy more of my surroundings a lot more. Now I mostly train quite late into the evening at the moment, and that's something I'm looking at changing soon. But there isn't a huge amount to see, but I just love hearing the owls, watching the rabbits scamper across the road. And one night these beautiful glowing eyes were staring at me from within a woodland, and then whew, those reflective spears just sort of leapt out of me on the trail ahead. And a red deer, it was just right there in front of me. It was just an amazing magic moment. Now it's only because I'm going at a nice and easy pace that I can appreciate and take the time to appreciate those moments. Secondly, I've really been enjoying the structure of the plan so far. So you generally have a couple of recovery runs a week, 2 or 3 runs with some kind of interval or speed work, and then a nice long run, or endurance run as they call it in the plan. I've always enjoyed the structure and familiarity that a training plan brings. There's also plenty of variety involved across the sessions too. The fartlek sessions, for example, play around with the interval times quite a lot, so sometimes you're going for longer efforts, sometimes shorter. Then there's the fast finish runs where you spend the majority of the run in zone 2 at a nice easy pace and then finish the run with a quick blast, 5 to 10 minutes at race pace or beyond. There's also hill repeats, and as well as something called progression intervals where you kind of progress through the different zones. 3 minutes in zone 3, for example, then a blast in zone 4 for a minute, and then zone 5, which is basically a full-on sprint for 20 seconds before heading back to zone 3 and repeating the process 3 or more times before spending about 5 minutes recovery in zone 2 and then going back over it again. That was a really tough workout. It sort of took me a bit by surprise. But it's keeping things interesting and adding new ideas into the pot, which is great for me as I do tend to settle into a routine and I don't change things up all that often. Something else I've been enjoying about the 80-20 plan is the Garmin and Training Peaks synchronicity, the way in which the platforms kind of connect and speak with one another. This is really great. So if you buy the plan from 80-20 Endurance, and by the way, you don't need to, I'll come to that later on, the plan is set up for you on the Training Peaks platform. You put in your race date, and then Training Peaks puts all of the workouts onto the calendar for you. After you find out your lactate threshold heart rate, see my last 80-20 video for full details on how you go about that. You can plug that data into Training Peaks, and then once you've allowed Training Peaks to connect with your Garmin Connect account, your workouts will get automatically pushed to your watch. It's pretty neat. It took me an evening to get my head around all of it though, so do set aside some time to set up your plan with your Training Peaks and Garmin if you go down that route. I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into when I bought the plan, as I wasn't at all familiar with Training Peaks, so it was a steep learning curve. Now, you don't have to buy the plan if you have the 80-20 book. The plans, I think, have had some tweaks since the book was published, but at a glance, they're basically the same. The reason I bought the plan was because I didn't fancy using the Garmin Connect app to create all of the workouts and then organise them all onto my calendar. I just don't have the time for that, and I didn't find that side of Garmin Connect particularly easy to use. So to save myself some hassle, I bought the plan and saved myself some time. Another positive of the 80-20 plan is there's an explicit reason for each workout. I'm quite used to training like that, and if you're new to running, that's something you want to start thinking about. When you head out for a run, what's the point of that run? What's it going to do? How will this run get you closer to your goal? Now in the book and on Training Peaks, it's made really explicit as to why you're doing that workout. And on Training Peaks, the author of 80-20 leaves you a really detailed note as to why you're doing that type of workout, and sometimes even includes some of the science behind it. So it's good. If you're ever lacking motivation for a run, just give that a read, and then if you're like me, that's more than enough to get you out of the door. Now this one is one of my favourite things I think about the 80-20 plan so far, is that I've really been enjoying the proper recovery runs. Nice and slow and easy recovery as it should be. I actually feel refreshed after them and ready for more. I've really been looking forward to these runs throughout the week as well. The pressure's off, you can just ease into it and enjoy the time on the legs. And this one is an easy win for the 80-20 training plan. I'm running more. Because each workout isn't as challenging, I feel I'm able to run more than I used to. So I'm actually spending more time on my legs. Now, like most of you, I'm happiest when running, so more running equals more happy, and who doesn't need that in these dark times? Now, if you watched my last 80-20 video, this one might surprise you. I'm really enjoying running to heart rate. I was convinced running to power was the way to go right at the start, but I'll tell you a bit more about that later. But here's why I'm enjoying using heart rate. First of all, it's becoming quite intuitive, so I know how much effort I'm putting in and what my heart rate is without even looking at my watch. It seems fairly consistent, and I'm already noticing I can run faster at certain heart rates after just a few weeks of training. I still don't think it's as pure as a metric as running by power, but it has been more consistent than I thought it would be, and I'm starting to come round to it. And given how it's always accessible to me, unlike power, it's been a lot easier to set up and use. It does have a couple of downsides, which I'll get into in a second, but I like how it's dialed into your physiology, and I think I'll stick with it for the half marathon training that I'm about to start. Okay, so those are the things that I'm really enjoying about 80-20 training. Now, what about the things that I found difficult or I'm not liking? First up, the integration of the Stryd footpod with Garmin and Training Peaks workouts. This caused me a massive headache when I first started getting the workouts from Training Peaks, and it needs a little explanation, so bear with me. Okay, so with the training plans and heart rate, it's easy. You simply send the workout from Training Peaks to Garmin, and then that sends it to your watch. And when you start your run, the zones are already dialed in. You have a nice coloured indicator on the watch to show you where you should be with each part of your workout. It's really easy just to glance at the watch and know where you are, which is brilliant. No fuss, lace up and head out the door. With power, it's not quite so simple. So Garmin watches can get the power data, but the data is only displayed as a number in a data field all by itself. There are no zones, no idea where you are in the workout and what your power zones should be. 80-20 have released a third-party app that they've made themselves that you can download onto your Garmin, and that helps, but it doesn't quite solve all of the issues. So alongside your 80-20 power zones, you have another thing coming from the Stryd footpod, which is the Stryd power zones, and they're calculated for you within the Stryd app. But they're calculated in a slightly different way to the 80-20 calculator. Now, I was wanting to stick with the 80-20 formula, so I tried adding my custom power zones to Stryd so that they could be pushed to my workouts, but it wasn't having any of it, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was going backwards and forwards with pushing the workouts from Training Peaks to Garmin Connect, and then to Stryd, and then to my phone, and then finally to my watch. It was making my head spin, so please, Garmin and Stryd, sit down and work this one out together. Third-party heart rate straps work really easily with Garmin's and the workouts, so why can't a third-party power meter do the same thing? Sort it out, please. Something else that I found tricky starting up was deciding on which level of plan to follow. The description of each level in the book didn't quite match where I am with my running. I'm not a beginner runner, but I'm not used to high mileage. I'm under 35 but have decent times at the 5k to half marathon distance. So I was a bit kind of unsure which one to go for. I've gone with level 1 for my half marathon training, so I'll see how this training block goes as to whether it's the right amount of time on my feet for the results I'd like to achieve. And then I'll adjust that one way or the other for what I hope to be the main race of my year, which will either be London or Manchester, or both. Who knows? The ballot is this week. Fingers crossed. Now this one isn't so much of a negative, but something I need to do a bit more research on, and I can't see any answers in the book. So anyone out there with experience of 80-20 training, maybe you could help. So where I live is very undulating, big uphills, big downhills, with not a lot of flat in between. Running to heart rate uphill has been fairly fine, so if it's in zone 2, nice and easy as you begin up the climb, and then just keep an eye on your heart rate as you progress up the hill. Quite often towards the end of a long hill I need to start walking towards the end, just because my heart rate just ticks over that kind of boundary of the zone, but that's been fine. It's running downhill to heart rate that's tricky, so my heart rate seems to drop quite quickly as I head downhill, so I've been pushing the pace to stay in the heart rate zone. Sometimes I'm having to go almost flat out to keep it in range. It's okay, and it's nice to mix up the pace a bit and stretch the legs, but I wonder if it's putting too much stress through the legs and whether I should just keep it fairly relaxed. It gets even more complicated when you're asked to hit zone 4 or zone 5 and you happen to be running downhill as well. There's just not a chance, and I'm literally flying all out as fast as my legs can take me. I'll be lucky to get it above 180. If anyone knows the answer to this one, I'd really appreciate it if you let me know down in the comments. Now again, this one isn't so much of a negative, but I think it's something to bear in mind if you're about to start 80-20 training. It took me a little while to get used to wearing a heart rate monitor. It took me a couple of weeks before I got used to it, and this is more of a grumble about my particular heart rate monitor than heart rate training itself really, but the strap on the WAHOO ticker is really irritating. You need a master's degree in Celtic knots to figure out how to tighten it up. It was also quite irritating how the heart rate took 5 to 10 minutes to accurately start reading my heart rate at the start of workouts. The sensor needs some kind of fluid between itself and your skin to start reading accurately. So I've remedied this by using an electrode gel, and now I get really accurate readings right at the start of the workout. So if you're training to heart rate, then this might be a good tip for you too. Now I'm nitpicking really, this isn't a huge thing, but one downside to 80-20 training, because I'm running about 5, sometimes 6 out of 7 days, I'm not cross-training as much as I would like, and if I fancied an indoor blast on Zwift, maybe like today, a tour of the Alp to Zwift, or another more challenging ride, I don't feel I have the freedom to do that using the current plan that I'm on. It's not a massive drawback, and if I wanted to, I could exchange one of my running workouts for a ride, and some days I probably will, but I do just love getting out for a run, more than I like being on an indoor trainer, of course. Interestingly, Matt Fitzgerald, the author of 80-20 training, does make the case for cross-training. In his experience, runners who cross-train have a far easier time when they get injured, as they have another sport to fall back on, and because they're already used to that sport, they're less likely to pick up another injury from overdoing it in that area too. But I'm not sure where that quite fits in with 80-20 and how much you'd need to adjust the training plan to make sure you are still following the 80-20 principle. It's something I need to explore and look into, but I'm enjoying running loads. I would like a little bit more cross-training. So will I stick with the 80-20 method? Definitely. For this half marathon block of training, I think the positives: more running, variety of workouts, less achy muscles, the ease of planning workouts, it outweighs the few relatively minor negatives that I found. So of course, it'll be the results that matter, and it will be interesting to see how well I run the London Landmarks Half Marathon in May. Fingers crossed it goes ahead. If it doesn't, I'm starting to plan a couple of other options, so whatever happens, I'm running a fairly flat half marathon in May and can see how well my body responds to 80-20 training. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions or any tips for me as I go about my 80-20 running journey, let me know down in the comments below. But until the next one, be the best you.